Today, let's talk about the repository module. We'll go over an introduction and capabilities of the module, and then we'll do a demonstration. Quick introduction. The data repository module allows you to define and manage study information and access and submit studies. You can contribute, upload, and store research data, view details of submitted studies, and view data that is housed. Capabilities: can view and search studies, create a study, edit a study, search studies, submit data, and download data. Let's go ahead and do a demo and look at how to view, create, approve, and edit a study. So I'm logged in to NPRR, and I'm going to go to the data repository. And you'll notice that the first screen you see is this View Study screen. This is where you can see studies that are available to you. This shows studies that you have permission to see. You can filter on them using these drop-downs here by ownership, yours, or all. Studies with data or all studies, data types in the study. Let's now go ahead and create a study. So to create a study, you'll click on this menu icon and then click Create Study. We'll be taken to a page that looks like this, and you'll need to complete all required fields. I'm going to give my study a name, as well as an abstract. You also need to select a study type. You can add in clinical trial ideas here. Under Study Research Management, all studies must have a primary principal investigator. You need to enter in this person. You can also add in a photo. Then once you enter their information, click to add to the table. Under Study Information, every study needs to have a primary site. So enter a site name and check the primary site. You can have as many sites as you need. Your study also needs to have a start and end date. So enter those in as well. And a funding source. You will also want to associate a form structure with your study. You can do this at a later time, but it's helpful to know, for users to know which form structures you intend on using. Select the one we created earlier. And then you also need to add an approved data submission document. This may be the same thing that you entered when you started. And submit my request. Now my study is ending. Probably want to go ahead and approve the study. So as a administrator, I'm going to go to the data repository and I'm going to click on the data repository administration. From here, I'm going to click on Manage Studies, which I'm already in, and then I'm going to click on the title of the study that needs it. should say KB Test Study 4. Here's where I can change it to private from public. All studies by default are set to public, and all data sets added to studies are set to private by default. Since I'm an administrator, my study has already been approved, so we don't need to do anything here. This is also where you can assign a DOI to a study. You would want to do this after you have submitted data and it's been validated. We'll come back to this. If I needed to further edit my study and I went to Manage Studies and I opened mine, I could click this edit button to edit it further, and you'd see that I have some more chevrons here: manage documentation, manage data sets, and grant permission. So if I want to manage documentation, this is where I could add files or URLs, including things like methods, findings, presentations, algorithms, etc. Manage data sets. This is where you will see data that has been validated and uploaded to the study. We'll come back to that once we look at that. And grant permissions, where you can give other users in the system permission to study. There's a couple different kinds. There's read, write, and then admin and owner. So read is the user can view the study. Write is user can view the study, edit study details, manage documentation, and manage data sets. Admin and owner can do all of that, but they can also grant permission. Only one admin and one owner are allowed. Now that we have a study, let's go ahead and add some data to it. To add data, you'll want to do a couple of things. Back to our PowerPoint here. So the purpose of the validation and submission tool is to validate data and then upload it to a specific study in their repository. There are two components: validation, which verifies that data submitted against a form structure conforms to the required format and range values that you defined in the dictionary. It'll tell you if there are errors in your submission package. Submission means that your data has been validated and you're ready to submit it and upload it to a study in the repository. Before we can do that, we need to prepare data. So we will locate and export the form structures that we want to use to collect data for our study. And then we'll enter data for each subject into the form. You should note that each subject requires a GUID or pseudo-GUID. So you'll want to use the GUID tool to generate these for each subject if you have not done so already. And then next to each GUID, you'll want to include an X record column to indicate that it's a new record. So I'm going to show you the data that I prepared. So on my screen here is the form structure that we created. I downloaded it as a CSV. And you'll notice in here that each data element that I added to that form structure is listed in row 2. And then there's also this record column. And that's where I put that X to indicate that this is a new record for this GUID. And then line 9 has another view record. And same for 13, 15, and 16. I filled out the GUIDs for my subjects, and then I entered in the data for each one. You'll notice that for the data element in column H, that it's a repeatable group, so there are different options I can enter here. So I went ahead and saved this as a CSV file, and now I'm ready to submit it to my study. So if I go to my data repository, and I go to the submission tools, and I click Launch Submission Tools, I want to open this web start. Once you get here, you'll have a screen like this. And what you'll want to do is you want to click Browse here and locate where you saved your data on your computer. Once you have that, click Load Files. And I highly recommend that you keep your files organized, because if you click Load Files and you have 40 files, it's going to load every file. And I recommend doing this because you're going to need to tell the system what you want it to look at to validate. So I don't want the system to look at these. I'm going to click on them and click Exclude. But I do want it to look at this file here. And it's telling me that it's a form structure and that it's published. I want to look at that. This is also a form structure, but I don't want to look at it because that's not the right one. I'm going to exclude that file. You should know that you can validate form structures in bulk, but if there are errors, then you have to resubmit the full package. So I'm going to click Validate Files, and the system says that all files are valid, which is great. The valid files will show in this green highlight. If there are errors, they will appear here at the bottom, and it'll tell you exactly where the error is in your spreadsheet. We just finished validating the data. Now we're ready to submit and upload the data. If I go to Build Submission Package, say OK, I can choose the study that I want to submit my data to. I choose the one we created. Then you want to enter a name for your data set submission. I highly recommend giving your submission some context, something that means something to you as well as anybody else that you consider your study. Then you'll want to click Start Submission Upload. And the progress will be shown here at the bottom. And it's all been completed, which is great. Now let's go and make sure that our data is showing in the repository. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our repository. I'm going to go to Manage Studies. I'm going to look at mine. And under Data Set Submissions, you'll see that data that we just uploaded is here, and then it's set to private, which is the default for data set. Now, if you had access to a study and you wanted to download some data that a colleague or somebody else with access to the study uploaded, you could click on that study. You could click Add to Download Queue. We're going to go check out our download queue in a second. But under here, after I requested to download that data, under the data access report, it's going to show that I have requested access to this data. You can tell who's accessed it. Finally, you should know that the username of that data will not be visible in the query tool until the next business day. It's a job that has to run overnight in order for the data to end up there. Okay, let's look at the download tool. Under the data repository, I'm just going to click the download tool. I'm going to click to launch it. This is another web start. And you can see a history of data that I've requested. You'll notice that this last one here is the most recent. That's the data that we just requested. So I'm going to check the box. It's going to show me there's a data file as well as an XML file and a mapping. Mapping for the form structure. I'm going to click Start Download. And it saves my downloads in a folder on my desktop. You can change that. I just put it there for simplicity. So if I go to my desktop and I look for that folder, this is the data that we just downloaded. You can see that it would be this same file here. And then we also have the form structure mapping. That's the download tool. A couple of miscellaneous notes. Let's go back to our study in the data repository and talk about requesting, sharing, archiving data. So I go to my study and I click to edit. Under Manage Datasets, you'll see that dataset that we just uploaded. If I wanted to change that, share it, archive, or delete it, I can absolutely do that from here because I am an admin or owner on the study. I did show you how to make a study public or private. But let's go back to that, and I can show you how to assign a DOI. I'm going to go to the Data Repository Administration, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my study. And under Administrative Functionality, you'll see you can change if you want the study to be public or private. And there's also the Assign DOI button. You'll want to click this button and it'll automatically assign the DOI to the study. And then you'll just click OK and the DOI will be assigned. I recommend assigning this once your data is clean. and ready to go. After that, your studies, they are public. They will appear on the public website under metadata, regardless of if they have a DOI. That's it for the data repository module. I would recommend going ahead and trying to submit data against some form structures and using the validation